I've been trying to think of an excuse to do a reflection on the Nativity or the incarnation and what it is that makes Christmas a reason for Christians of all stripes to celebrate and to mark this occasion. Because this isn't just a birthday for a great religious figure, this is the moment in space and time in which God decides to implement his great reset. It's the moment at which God, who created the universe, as well as us within it, revealed to us what could have only otherwise been hoped for, which is that he's so invested in us as the human race, in our fate and the fate of this world, that instead of acting remotely for our benefit, he enters into the story. He becomes one of us. The Word becomes flesh. Now, this is a staggering exposition for who God is and what his priorities are. But for the sake of this commentary, I want to focus in on just one thing, which is that he used physical matter to reveal himself to us. Because we are physical beings, it would make sense that the way for us to best encounter him isn't just through our minds or some sort of spiritual connection, but in the manner that we commonly encounter every other person, which is through our physical senses. Because of Jesus, we can now see the invisible God. We can listen to him, we can touch him, we can embrace him as one of us, which is a dramatic progression in the potential intimacy we can experience with divinity. And this physical encounter wasn't just for the people of first century Judea. If it's going to have any meaningful effect for the human race, we should expect that it would persist through time, down through every generation. Now, if you're a faithful Catholic, you'll already be familiar with how this physical interaction persists through every generation in the sacraments, most profoundly in the Eucharist, where we attain this physical intimacy with Jesus that is like nothing else. But also in sacraments like reconciliation, where we literally hear the priest give us absolution as they act in persona Christi. But another way we encounter the incarnation, which is less understood because of how muddled our understanding is in the modern age, is through sacred art. Jesus is the icon of the invisible Father. He's the physical revelation of God. He said that if you have seen me, you have seen the Father. And this understanding is still well nurtured within Eastern Christianity, where they understand the role of icons to be performing a similar function to the revelation of God through the incarnation of Jesus. But the key thing to remember is that God's intention in the incarnation was to reveal himself to us, to make himself more available, more explicit, and more accessible in a manner that is common from our typical experience, which is physical reality. So sacred art, if it's going to be effective, it needs to follow that same pattern. It needs to follow God's lead in that. If one of its chief purposes is to reveal the icon of God, then that gives us kind of a criterion by which we can judge what is good sacred art and what is bad sacred art. So from that, I would say that good sacred art communicates something definite and explicit to us. It aims to apprehend, to perceive the icon of God, and then render it for us in such a way that will encourage our understanding, rather than discourage or confuse our understanding. Again, I think that God's intention in salvation history has been to progressively reveal himself to us. That's what revelation actually means. But the trend in modern art is to be as ambiguous as possible about what the meaning of the art actually is. I saw a video on YouTube recently that featured Steve Martin for some reason, in which the premise was he was supposed to explain to us how to interpret modern art. But what he actually did was focus in on a piece of art and then say a bunch of things about it, about what it meant to him, while making sure that he continually conceded that you can't actually interpret it. There's no definitive way to say what it truly means. So the whole time he's saying all these things about this particular painting, he's really only pretending to have some sort of an insight, because he routinely concedes and corrects himself by saying there is no valid interpretation or invalid interpretation for that matter. So the whole thing is an exercise in pretending to access meaning, or maybe a better word to describe it would be pretentious. A more classical understanding of art was that the artist's role was to try to capture a vision of something that was hard to understand or maybe rare, and then portrayed in such a way that their audience could also capture that vision. The object of art in this case is something outside of the artist, something that is true and real or part of the fabric of reality. But in modern art, the role of the artist is to be a creator themselves rather than a communicator of what already exists. Instead of capturing a vision and an appreciation of God's creation, they step into the role of God as someone who creates out of nothing. But as any logical person can appreciate, from nothing comes nothing. So it's no wonder why the modern and postmodern art establishment is so reluctant to interpret any kind of meaning into art that's popular today, because there is no meaning in it. It's all a pretentious masquerade in meaning. This is why a classical approach to art is so much more fitting in the service of sacred art. Again, its purpose is to look towards an actual object and then portray it for the rest of us. And the incarnation of God is a portrayal of something definite in the truest sense. With that being the case, we should be able to detect a strong correlation and compatibility between the approach to classical art and the incarnation. Whereas modern art, its purpose is to create out of nothing and to keep the meaning of the art obscured or ambiguous, which is the opposite of revelation. So why then would we use that same philosophy that informs modern and postmodern art to portray the incarnation? And this brings us to this year's nativity scene at the Vatican, which even secular media could admit is controversial. The characteristic reaction I've seen to it is mostly confusion. Like, why is there an astronaut? Why do they look so grotesque? Just why in general? The answer is because modern art's aim is to avoid definite meaning, again, to be ambiguous about it. Whereas the incarnation of God is to do the opposite. So you end up with something that is completely incoherent and undermines the point of the nativity, which took place in history. And I don't think you need any great theological insight or training to appreciate this fact. God chose to act in history. We don't need space demons and astronauts to portray that. We just need the facts to be portrayed from the historical story. And the fact that something so obvious is missed by those who occupy the highest seats of authority in the church is what is so concerning about it to Catholics like me. I mean, I can get over bad art. What I have a tougher time with is this feeling like I'm part of a flock that is lacking good shepherds who understand even the most basic tenets of our faith. Hey, thanks for watching that. If you enjoyed it, then be sure to like and subscribe for more. And if you want to support the making of content like this, then please consider joining my online community, The Reinforcements. It's kind of like Patreon, but instead of being beholden to a big tech company, it's a website I built entirely myself, so there's no risk of us being censored or shut down or anything like that. There are hundreds of people who have already signed up, and our mission is to renew and reinforce the church. So if that's you, then come check it out. As an added bonus for certain tiers, I will also send you a gift box from Glory and Shine, which is a Catholic, family-owned and operated company. They make bath and body products. They're their beard balm I'm supporting, or I'm sporting right now. I'm not just a spokesperson, I'm actually a customer. So even if you don't join the Reinforcements, maybe check them out anyways. Glory and Shine, they're an amazing company.